Good evening, I'm Rick Harp. Welcome to APTN National News. We lead off once again in the nation's capital, where Justin Trudeau continues to meet with other parties in hopes of managing his minority mandate in Parliament. This time around, Bloc Québécois leader Yves-François Blanchet. And after that meeting, Blanchet told reporters that his party and the Liberals do share some things in common, from a lack of support for Western separatism to concerns around climate change. Regarding the latter, the Bloc leader urged Trudeau to reconsider his support for expanding oil and gas development.
Each and every time, we have the duty to remind this government that they are also promoting the extraction, exportation, and consumption of oil throughout the world, which is destroying the effect of what they are trying to do on the other end. So it's a matter of being relevant and coherent, not to support oil when you want to reduce the effects of climate change.
Still on the environment front, it's been a busy few weeks for climate activist Greta Thunberg. From addressing the UN to marching alongside North American climate strikers, even sitting down for a chat with Justin Trudeau.
Inspiring, incredible organizers. I think.
But with the upcoming climate summit, COP25, relocated from Chile to Spain, she's headed back across the pond. Now, as someone who refuses to fly, Thunberg ventured to North America via sailboat. For her return leg, she's hitching a somewhat different ride, a catamaran. Making up her motley crew this time around, a pair of YouTubing Australians, their 11-month-old son, and a professional sailor. Back in September on the newscast, we told you about a woman who took to social media after some suspicious behavior at a Saskatoon gas station. Spotting a cell phone in the station's washroom ceiling, she posted pictures of it online, then complained to police. Well, now the employee who hid the phone there has been sentenced. On Tuesday, 25-year-old Adnan Iqbal pled guilty to a charge of attempted voyeurism. Attempted because Saskatoon police were unable to locate any incriminating evidence on his device. Iqbal will not serve time in jail, however. Instead, a joint submission from the Crown and Defence produced a 15-month suspended sentence. For the Innu and Naskapi communities of northern Quebec, it's a lifeline, a 200-kilometer stretch of rail jointly owned and operated by 3 band councils. But a recent dispute between management and workers dramatically reduced service. With more on what that's meant for those who rely on the railway is APTN's Lindsay Richardson.
Every Wednesday morning, long before sunrise, a line begins to form at this depot. Bleary-eyed commuters wait with boxes of cargo to fill a train they absolutely cannot miss. For the first time in its 15-year existence, the Chiwetan Rail Line, owned and jointly operated by 3 band councils, now makes only one weekly return trip between Schefferville and Sept-Îles. Those who use the train say life and work revolves around its operation. Not only disrupting delivery of essentials like gas and food to otherwise inaccessible remote communities, those expecting to hunt along the train line had to make other plans.
J'ai été obligée d'annuler le voyage parce que là, il arrêtait plus dans les stations.
For 6 weeks, commuters were held in the grips of a strike by workers left without a collective agreement since March.
Les usines sont partis à cause qu'ils voyaient que la compagnie tombait petit à petit.
Nearly a dozen of the transport company's 75 workers quit since September, according to union president Joel Jean-Pierre. Chiwetan's constant delays and employee pressure tactics cost area mining companies $20 million in lost profit, a symptom of bad management, Jean-Pierre says.
C'est pas nous qu'on fait le déficit, c'est peut-être à cause d'une mauvaise gestion de la part de la compagnie.
But service is gradually expected to pick up. On Monday, workers agreed to suspend their pressure tactics pending, quote, advancing negotiation with stakeholders. In a statement, a union representative said it continues to seek improvements in hours of work, wages, and retroactivity. But in the interest of protecting the regional economy from future complications, Jean-Pierre says rail yard equipment needs to be modified.
C'est pas des trains nœuds d'aujourd'hui. Ça, c'est une autre affaire que Transport Canada, on devrait regarder à nos matériels qui sont pas nécessairement neufs.
Those who use the train, however, say their comfort will increase exponentially once they know for certain they can and will get exactly where they need to go. Lindsay Richardson, APTN National News, Sept-Îles.
And we have a late-breaking update for you on that story. APTN has learned just moments ago that the strike is now officially over. In a statement, Chair of the Board Sharon Chekanapish said that regular train service will soon be gradually reinstated. Nunavut residents across the territory will have another reason to celebrate this summer, thanks to a new stat holiday. July 9th has been Nunavut Day since the territory was created back in 1999, but only Government of Nunavut employees got the day off. Now, most of the territory will get to enjoy the day as a statutory holiday. Now, although the territory was inaugurated on April 1st, 1999, Nunavut Day actually aligns with the date when Parliament passed the bill that formalized the establishment of the territory. Speaking of breaks, it's time for us to take one here on the program. When we return, a look at what and who is on the agenda of this week's Assembly of the Anishinaabe-Aski Nation. Please stay with us. And we begin our weather outlook in St. John's, mostly sunny and 1. Fredericton, a mix of sun and cloud, -2. We got some snow in Inukjuak, -9. Lots of snow in La Grande River, -6. Val-d'Or, -2. Bit of snow, mix of sun and cloud in Sept-Îles, -2. Sault Ste. Marie, snowy +2. North Bay, snowy -1. Kapuskasing -5 and snow. Elliott Lake 0 with snow. Churchill a snowy -10. The Paw a snowy -8. Barons River 5 heavy snow. Brandon mostly cloudy 1. Yorkton a snowy -3. Swift Current a mix of sun and cloud +3. Stony Rapids some cloud -17. Meadow Lake mostly sunny -7. And welcome back to APTN National News. Chiefs from Northern Ontario are gathering in Thunder Bay this week for the Fall Assembly of the Anishinaabe-Aski Nation, or NAN. For more on what this NAN gathering is about, we're joined now by APTN's Willow Fiddler. Willow, thanks for joining us. Let us know what's on the agenda here for the NAN Chiefs this week in Thunder Bay.
Right, so there's 49 First Nations that make up Anishinaabe-Aski Nation, and it covers much of northern and northwestern Ontario. There's 38 chief delegates that have come to the Chiefs Assembly this week. They meet in a Chiefs Assembly 4 times a year for each season. So there's several items on the agenda over the next 2 days, including housing, infrastructure, education, health transformation, climate change, child welfare, and many more. And generally what happens is presentations will be made to the chiefs on these issues by experts, analysts, administrative staff, and they will go into discussion about them and come up with any resolutions on any actionable items that they want to move forward with.
Now, I understand Ontario's Minister of Indigenous Affairs was there as well. What did Greg Rickford have to say?
So Minister Rickford announced just over $500,000 in economic development grants for 6 First Nations, Anishinaabe-Aski Nation. Some of those projects include co-op feasibility studies and looking at other opportunities for broadband and fiber optic connectivity. He also provided an update on Bearskin Lake First Nation. The community was declared a state of emergency last weekend after an ice jam in the Severn River started flooding the community. So evacuations started today. 357 community members will be evacuated to Sulikout first, and then Thunder Bay is what we learned today. Here's a little bit of what Minister Rickford had to say on that.
The evacuation began in earnest and people were moved out yesterday. Finally, technical experts were brought in for blasting, to assess the ability of blasting. It was communicated to the leadership of the community and to us that that was a longer process. It wasn't you can't just go in there and blow it up, but that they would be understanding whether that was possible or not.
Now, on Thursday, the Chief Coroner of Ontario will be there at the NAN gathering. What's he expected to say? So, Dirk Heyer is Ontario's chief coroner, and he's going to be providing two updates to the chiefs. One is the reinvestigations of 9 death investigations, and that comes from a recommendation from the OIPRD report last year. Jury McNeely felt that there was 9 death investigations of First Nations people in Thunder Bay that weren't done properly. So there's been, Thunder Bay Police have been joined by other police service organizations since then, and they're working now at reinvestigating those 9 death investigations. He's also going to be providing an update on fire deaths in First Nations, another report that he has done in recent years. And we're going to be providing more information, giving you more info on those 2 updates tomorrow. All right. Willow Fiddler, thank you very much for this update.
Thanks, Rick.
After the apology of 2008 and the compensation that followed, it's perhaps no surprise why many Canadians believe their government has made amends for the harms of residential schools. And yet today, tens of thousands of former students remain excluded from that settlement and have also been excluded from subsequent compensation for those harmed at day schools. On today's In Focus, we heard the stories of 2 such individuals and how that exclusion continues to affect them.
Once we started looking at the list, there was, again, approximately, say, 700 schools that were officially recognized as Indian Day schools that were included in the settlement agreement. But there were also around 680 schools that were excluded. And when we started looking at the reasons that the federal government gave for their exclusions, that's when we came across primarily the reasons they were excluded were, according to the federal government, that they were run or operated, funded by other organizations.
So the reason we're here today is to get justice for the schools that are left out of the class action by the government. You mentioned 640, but we calculated over 800 schools across the country. So a lot of these students were abused physically and raped and stuff like this. And all we're asking is justice. The government of Canada keeps stipulating reconciliation with the Indian nations. What about reconciliation with the people and the students that were abused? This was torture. This was genocide. People have committed suicide because of the torture that was done to these children, these students.
The government could give that back if they would, sit down with us and come up with some kind of a blanket statement with everybody to be involved in this.
Or at least an apology for taking it away.
And an apology to say that I'm sorry we took your dignity away, your way of life, and we'd like to apologize for that, and etc. So, those kind of things would help us quite a bit, and we could move forward and close this chapter if the government decides that if they want to compensate these people that went through a lot of trauma.
And of course, remember, you can catch any episode of In Focus you may have missed by visiting our website, aptnnews.ca. Time for another pause here on the program. Coming up, a living legend pays a visit to 6 nations to help mentor the next gen of Indigenous artistry. That's Buffy St. Marie when we come back. We pick up in northern Alberta, where high level has a lot of snow and -14. Grand Prairie, mostly cloudy, -3. Calgary, mostly sunny, +5. Lethbridge got some snow and +5. Campbell River, 11 with snow. Quesnel, a bit of snow and 7. Dease Lake, snowy 1. Smithers, 6 degrees with snow. Rock River, a lot of snow and -22. Whitehorse, 0. Also, lots of the wet stuff. Wrigley, -19 and snow. Wati, mostly, well, mix of sun and cloud, -20. Tuktoyaktuk, mix of sun and cloud, -19. Fort McPherson, -18. Lots of snow coming your way. Baker Lake, mostly sunny, -23. Whale Cove, mix of sun and cloud, -24. Igloolik, -12. Mostly cloudy. Cape Dorset, mostly cloudy as well, -7. And thanks for staying with us. It was a long road that led to the final report of the National Inquiry into Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls, and often just as long was the journey of those who wished to witness its formal presentation. Among them, well-known advocate Gladys Raddick. Yesterday, we shared part 1 of her story, chronicled by APTN's Charlotte Moore Jacobs. Here now, the conclusion to her report.
Gladys Raddick is leaving Terrace, British Columbia, on her very last trip across the country. She's going to witness the final report for the National Inquiry into Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls.
I think going to Ottawa, to the big house, and delivering our voices to them is important. It's an important step towards positive change.
She's traveled on foot and by car across Canada 7 times. And has seen many things.
We had quite a few incidents with racism, with perpetrators, guys following us, recording us. And, it was scary. And the other scary part, too, was the fact that a lot of our walkers, too, were also finding items of clothing, sweaters, bras, panties, change purses.
And has given many recommendations, like the ones she shared at the inquiry hearings in Smithers, BC. Some things in her area have improved, like public transportation. But there are constant reminders that most things haven't. Since those hearings in northern BC, 2 women have been found dead and 1 has gone missing from Smithers. Chantel Simpson, Jessica Patrick, and Frances Brown.
Where she was lost, there was no...
Recognized by her auntie here. Constant reminders that things must change is why Raddick keeps fighting. We're stopped again in Morristown, BC.
We're safe now, and we're talking about it, and that's what needs to be done.
Yeah.
And don't hitchhike anymore. Okay.
We dropped by Kikwanda, BC to meet Wanda Good, an old friend and fellow MMIWG advocate.
There is no more feelings of safety. There is no more feelings of closure or healing because these cases have never been solved.
Her cousin Lana Derrick went missing in 1995, and her cousin Alberta Williams was found dead in 1989, both along the Highway of Tears. Good wants all levels of government to address factors that make Indigenous women vulnerable.
When I hear of another First Nations woman who has gone missing, I think of the mountain that we are trying to move.
It's been a long trip from Terrace. We're near Edson, Alberta, when a wildfire closes the highway and forces us to drive through the night deep in the bush. But Raddick is determined to make this trip to represent the families. Like Doug Leslie, who we meet in Burns Lake. His 15-year-old daughter, Lorna Leslie, was found murdered on a logging road north of Vanderhoof in BC in 2010.
For the first 7 or so years, I wrote to Lauren every single day on Facebook. Now I plan on writing a book with all the posts that helped me get through the 7 years. And hopefully it'll maybe help somebody else get through their 7 years.
In Saskatoon, we meet up with Myrna LaPlante. Her Aunt Emily Osmond LaPlante and nephew Cody Wolf went missing from Saskatchewan. She hopes the inquiry prompts changes with the RCMP.
When we realize a person has gone missing, is contacting the police. And we need absolute respect and honor from the police, that it doesn't matter who they are, that the appropriate resources are there and the dedication to finding the missing person.
Despite what you may think of the inquiry, Radek wants to make one point clear.
I think about those commissioners, and I think about how long it took me to learn all these stories. It took me 11 years, and they were given 2.5 years to learn those stories, to hear them, to learn them, and to figure out what can we do to change things.
But it's time to leave. There's still a lot of highway and a lot more fight left to go.
It's not the inquiry, it's not the families that need to listen, it's Canada. And by golly, I think they will.
Charlotte Mort-Jacobs, APTN National News, Saskatoon.
And Gladys Radek would indeed make it to the report's release. On June 3rd, she was on hand in Gatineau, Quebec, to hear the commissioners classify Canada's treatment of Indigenous peoples as genocide. Their final report yielded 231 calls for justice. Since then, a number of governments have responded. They include an end to so-called birth alerts in British Columbia. That is, the province no longer seizes newborns from hospitals at birth. And in Saskatoon, City Council has committed to reading the entire report to see how it might act on its calls. As for the federal government, no action plan has been presented thus far, some 5 months after the report's release. Six Nations was treated to a special performance over the weekend. Musical icon Buffy St. Marie visited the community, not only to perform, but to support youth through a program she started back in 2017. For months, young people in Six Nations have been paired with teachers from Ryerson University to learn technical elements of arts production. They were also mentored by local musicians, artists, and spoken word performers, like local workshop leader Crystal Rivers.
Most of all, we can see the beauty and the resilience and the inspiring passion and just the spirit of our youth. I think just the paintings, I feel like their paintings in a sense, they can speak volumes, and having their personalities up on stage, emceeing and guiding us through the show. They've put this whole thing together. So number one, our youth, just to display our youth's talent like this is awesome.
A nice note to go out on, and that's it for APTN National News on this Wednesday evening. Be sure to join us again tomorrow at this same time for more of what's making news across Indigenous country. I'm Rick Harp. Take care, everyone. Have a good night.